You are sitting somewhere ordinary. A cafe, a car, a familiar room that feels easy enough not to demand your attention. Someone is talking about love. They talk about choosing someone because it felt intense, unpredictable, alive. They describe the rush, the uncertainty, the way their heart raced because nothing felt guaranteed. You listen. You always do. Your face stays calm. Your posture stays relaxed. You nod at the right moments. But inside, nothing reaches for that story. Not resistance, not judgment, just stillness. You notice it when others start leaning forward, when voices overlap, when excitement fills the space. Their hands move faster, their words speed up, their energy rises. You do not match it. You feel present, grounded, almost anchored. Then someone looks at you and asks, "What about you?" You pause longer than they expect, not because you do not know, because the answer does not arrive loudly. You say something simple, something about wanting things to feel steady, clear, reliable. The room shifts slightly, not dramatically, just enough for you to feel it. Someone smiles politely. Someone jokes. Someone fills the space you did not rush to occupy. You let it pass. But inside, a familiar thought surfaces. Why does what feels right to you sound so strange out loud? You have felt this before. At gatherings, in late conversations, in moments where chaos is celebrated as proof of connection. You do not feel broken. You do not feel afraid. You feel out of sync. And somewhere beneath that feeling, a quiet question begins to form. What if this difference is not random at all? There is an assumption that follows you quietly. It is never said directly, but you feel it. You feel it in the pause after you choose steadiness, in the way people look at you when you do not describe love as a rush, in the subtle shift when you say you value calm over intensity. They assume you are settling. They assume you are afraid of feeling deeply. They assume you chose safety because you could not handle love. And for a long time, you may have wondered the same thing. You may have asked yourself if something inside you was muted, if something essential never fully ignited, if you were missing the part that makes love feel dramatic and consuming. But nothing in you is malfunctioning. What looks like avoidance from the outside feels like regulation on the inside. What others call emotional distance feels like self-trust. What gets labeled as caution feels like listening to yourself. You are not stepping away from love. You are stepping toward something that does not require you to abandon yourself. You do not move quickly into intensity because your system pays attention. It notices what stays steady, what remains consistent, what does not spike and disappear. Others chase connection through emotional highs. You sense connection through stability, through predictability, through the absence of emotional whiplash. This is not fear. Fear rushes. Fear reacts. Fear grabs without checking. What you feel is discernment. You notice how your body responds when something is steady. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow down. Your chest does not tighten. You also notice how your body responds when something is volatile. The excitement comes with tension. The attraction comes with vigilance. The closeness asks you to stay alert. So you choose differently. Not because you are incapable of passion, but because you are capable of listening. There is a quiet intelligence in that choice. An understanding that love does not have to feel destabilizing to be real. That commitment does not have to cost you your nervous system. You were never broken for wanting something that lasts longer than a rush. You were never deficient for valuing peace alongside connection. Your mind and body learned what they could sustain. They learned what allows you to stay present instead of braced. They learned what feels safe enough to grow inside. And when you see it this way, something loosens. The shame softens.
The self-questioning quiets. Because this was never about lacking depth. It was about choosing a depth that does not demand chaos to prove itself. Underneath the choice you make, something quieter is happening. It is not a thought. It is not a rule you decided to follow. It is a calibration. Your nervous system is constantly scanning, not for excitement, for safety. It listens to tone before words. It notices consistency before promises. It tracks how your body feels after connection, not just during it. When something feels intense, your awareness sharpens. Your mind stays alert. Your body does not fully settle. Even when the attraction is real, there is a subtle brace inside you. A readiness. A sense of holding yourself together. But when something feels stable, the opposite happens. Your shoulders drop without effort. Your breathing deepens on its own. Your thoughts stop circling. This is not indifference. This is regulation. Your system is not seeking less feeling. It is seeking a rhythm it can stay inside without exhaustion. Over time, you learned the difference between stimulation and safety. Stimulation is loud. It arrives fast. It demands attention. Safety is quieter. It unfolds slowly. It allows you to remain yourself while connecting. Many people confuse the two. They interpret intensity as depth. They assume calm means lack. You do not. You sense that real closeness is not something that spikes your system. It is something that steadies it. This pattern did not appear suddenly. It formed quietly, through repetition, through noticing what left you grounded and what left you drained. Your body kept score even when you did not name it. It remembered what it could recover from. It remembered what lingered. So now, when you choose stability, you are not choosing comfort over love. You are choosing a form of connection that allows your awareness to stay open instead of guarded. Others might fall in love through intensity. You fall into connection through alignment. And that difference is not a flaw in your wiring. It is the logic of a system that learned how to protect presence. This is not about playing it safe. It is about staying available. Available to yourself. Available to time. Available to a bond that does not require constant recovery. When you see it this way, something shifts again. Your choice stops feeling like hesitation. It starts feeling like coherence. A system choosing what it can live inside for a long time. Not loudly, not dramatically, but truthfully. From the outside, it often looks simple. People tilt their heads when you explain your choice. There is a pause that lingers half a second too long. Someone smiles politely, then asks if you are sure. They expect a story filled with sparks. They wait for longing, urgency, drama. When it does not arrive, confusion settles in the room. You notice it immediately, not because you are sensitive to judgment, but because you are attentive to shifts. A raised eyebrow, a softened voice, a comment framed as concern. They begin to fill the silence for you. They assume you settled. They hint that you gave something up. You do not argue. You rarely explain. Not because you lack words, but because the truth does not translate easily. How do you describe a calm that feels alive? How do you explain that steadiness can feel intimate? So you let the misunderstandings sit. Over time, it creates distance in small ways. Conversations skim the surface. Advice arrives uninvited. You are seen as practical, predictable, sometimes emotionally cautious. What they do not see is how much presence you bring, how deeply you notice, how carefully you choose. They measure connection by visible intensity. You measure it by what remains after the moment passes. This difference creates quiet friction, not conflict, not rejection, just a sense that you are speaking slightly different languages. At gatherings, you hear others describe passion as chaos. They laugh about volatility as if it proves depth. You listen, feeling both near and far at the same time. There is a loneliness in that. Not dramatic, just subtle. A feeling of being understood only partially, of being seen through a lens that misses the center. Yet even in that isolation, something inside you stays steady. You do not feel defensive. You do not feel wrong. You feel clear. Clear that your inner world does not need to perform. Clear that your way of connecting does not need validation to be real. The misunderstanding hurts because it touches something tender, not because it shakes your truth. And slowly, you begin to realize something else. The distance you feel is not caused by your choice. It is caused by the gap between inner experience and outward expectation. That clarity does not erase the discomfort, but it does give it shape. And shape makes space.
Space to stand where you are, without explaining, without retreating. Just standing. This way of choosing did not appear suddenly. It was not a decision made in one moment. It formed quietly, over time, without announcements. You learned early how to read rooms, how to sense tension before it surfaced, how to notice when stability mattered more than excitement. Not because you were told to, because your body paid attention. There may have been environments where unpredictability was present, where emotional shifts felt sudden, where intensity carried a cost. So your system adapted. You became skilled at finding steadiness, at valuing what lasted, at staying grounded when others leaned into extremes. This was not fear, it was calibration. Your nervous system learned that safety came from consistency, from rhythms that could be trusted, from people who remained the same across days. That learning stayed with you. As you grew, others learned to chase intensity. They learned to confuse volatility with closeness. You learned something different. You learned that calm allowed you to stay present. That predictability gave your thoughts room to unfold. That emotional reliability let your body rest. So when it came time to choose connection, your system recognized what felt familiar. Not boring, familiar. Familiar in the way your shoulders softened, in the way your breath slowed, in the way your attention stayed open instead of guarded. This was not about avoiding love. It was about protecting regulation. What once helped you navigate early environments continued to guide you quietly into adulthood. Not because you were stuck, because the patterns still worked. It allowed you to remain yourself, to stay aware instead of reactive, to feel grounded instead of swept away. There is no flaw in that. There is history. There is logic. There is intelligence beneath the surface. Your body remembers what helped you stay whole, and it still honors that memory, even now.
Something begins to change when you stop trying to fix this part of yourself. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly.
in the way your body loosens when it no longer feels questioned. You start to see that what you called hesitation is not hesitation at all. It is discernment. You are not avoiding connection. You are choosing when it feels real. You are not lacking confidence. You are conserving presence. You do not move quickly into closeness because you want it to mean something, because you want it to last beyond the moment, because you do not want to leave yourself behind just to keep pace. This is not fear. Fear rushes. Fear reacts. What you feel is alignment. You value steadiness over intensity, clarity over performance, depth over momentum. Where others rush toward interaction to feel alive, you wait until interaction feels honest. You do not need to fill silence to belong in a space. You do not need to be loud to be felt. You do not need to accelerate to prove interest. Your presence carries weight because it is intentional. When you speak, it is usually because something aligns inside you, not because silence feels uncomfortable, not because attention demands movement. This quality is not a limitation. It is information. It shows you which environments regulate you, which conversations allow you to stay intact, which connections feel sustainable rather than draining. You are not built for constant stimulation. You are built for attunement, for noticing what others pass over, for sensing shifts before words appear, for listening beneath what is said. Once you see this clearly, something settles. You stop comparing yourself to louder rhythms. You stop mistaking restraint for absence. You stop interpreting calm as lack. And in that space, a deeper steadiness forms. You feel less pressure to explain who you are not, more grounded in who you already are. Your way of connecting was never a barrier. It was a different doorway, one that opens slowly, one that opens honestly, one that opens only when it feels right. And that is not something to outgrow. It is something to stand inside with quiet certainty. There is a quiet question that stays with you. It appears after conversations where you spoke less than expected, yet felt more than anyone noticed. Nothing dramatic happened, no clear mistake, no obvious regret, just a subtle wondering that arrives later. Would things feel easier if you moved faster? If you chose intensity instead of steadiness? If you entered connection without pausing first? The question does not demand an answer. It drifts in during silence, when the room empties, when the noise fades, when you are alone with yourself again. And then you notice something important. When you are allowed to move at your own pace, your body settles. When no one rushes you to feel more, say more, or promise more, your thoughts become clearer. When nothing is demanded from you, your presence deepens instead of tightening. That tells you the truth. The discomfort was never inside you. It lived in the mismatch. Between your rhythm and the speed around you. Between your need for coherence and a world that rewards momentum. Between your depth and expectations that favor immediacy. You were not missing something. You were carrying something different. And maybe the real question is not why you are this way. Maybe it is this. If connection only counted when it was fast, loud, and obvious, why does the quiet kind stay with you longer? Why does it feel more real when it is chosen slowly? Why does your body relax when nothing has to be proven? Why does steadiness feels like home instead of settling? You are not late to connection. You are not behind in love. You are moving at the speed that allows you to remain yourself. And that matters more than most people ever pause long enough to notice. If any part of this felt familiar, you do not need to explain it. You do not need to justify why it stayed with you. Sometimes recognition is quiet. It does not ask for words. You might have felt it as a pause, a slow breath, a sense of being understood without having to perform. If you want, you can leave a comment with a single word. Not to explain yourself, just to acknowledge that this reached you. And if you choose to stay, you are welcome here. We move slowly, at a pace that lets you remain yourself.